That is the way to go, given how prohibitively expensive fossil fuels have become. Today, if you were to refuel your vehicle in any of the metros in India, you would think you were being looted. Petrol prices have been soaring for 16 straight days in this country, and it's incredible because global crude prices are falling. Let me give you the numbers first. Petrol costs 86 rupees 24 paise a litre in India's financial capital, Mumbai. That's $1.3 a litre. No wonder the biggest priority for most Indians buying cars is the mileage of the car, the number of miles to a litre. Petrol has crossed the 81 rupee mark in Kolkata and Chennai. It's shy of the 80 rupee mark in Bengaluru. Diesel is no different. It's selling between 67 and 74 Indian rupees in Tier 1 cities. So what is the government of India doing? Not nothing. It is taking steps to mitigate the crisis, but it hasn't brought any relief to the consumers, so frankly, it really doesn't matter. Last week, Law Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad said the government is not interested in temporary measures. It's taking a long-term view, he says. Now, we have spoken and discussed and explained at length how taxes on petrol and diesel in India are extraordinarily high, the highest in South Asia, among the highest in the world. So I'm going to state the obvious. The government can start with cutting taxes, but it won't. Because the government says tax on fuel is used for development schemes. So you choose, do you want a good road or cheap fuel to drive your car on a bad road? In most cases, unfortunately, you get neither, and that is the state of affairs in India. This country is not the only victim, though, of high fuel prices. Cut to Brazil, hundreds of truckers are out on the streets in protest. They have been on strike for 9 days now. It's a strike that has crippled Brazil's economy. Late Monday night, President Michel Temer offered to cut the price of diesel by about 12% and bear the burden.
The first request of truckers, the price of diesel was reduced to 0.46 cents per litre. For 60 days, the price will not change, and after that, it means 2 months from now, the adjustment will be every month. The government is assuming sacrifice in the budget and will cut the differences without affecting petrol bars.
But for the protesting truckers, it was too little too late. They rejected this offer, leaving cities in the country without fuel at petrol stations. The fallout, a growing shortage of essential goods from fresh fruit and vegetables to medicine. Across Brazil, factories have been forced to shut down. In Sao Paulo, only a third of buses were running. Queues at petrol stations continued. Schools and universities suspended classes. 8 airports had to suspend operations due to shortage of fuel. That is what's happening in Brazil. The question then is this: if crude prices are falling in the international market, why are they rising in India? Are oil companies pocketing all the profit by bleeding consumers? Will the relief be extended to people? How are other countries dealing with this volatility? Take a look.
Surging oil prices are burning a hole in the Indian consumer's pocket. Petrol and diesel prices continue to climb every day. The prices of both fuels are now at an all-time high across India's major metros. But the rally seen in global oil prices has now come to a halt. This was one of the major reasons behind the spike in oil prices in India. After touching a high of $80 a barrel, the price of Brent crude dropped by $5. Experts anticipate that crude could drop below $70 a barrel in the coming weeks. So why has the bull run of the oil market suddenly stopped? Saudi Arabia and Russia, two of the world's leading suppliers of oil, had earlier capped their output. Both countries are now looking to pump up their supply in the near future. It's not just India that is bearing the brunt of high petrol and diesel prices. Brazil's truck drivers blocked roads to protest against high diesel prices. The protest brought Latin America's largest economy to a halt, forcing the country's president to slash diesel prices.
Agora, acertamos que será por 60 dias, sem modificação no preço. E a partir daí, ou seja, daqui a 2 meses, só haverá reajustes mensais.
Thailand has its own strategy to combat rising oil prices. The country's government has set up a $900 million state oil fund to help consumers cope with rising global oil prices. Thailand's oil minister says that the fund can absorb an increase of up to 50% in retail prices. India imports more than 80% of its annual crude oil requirement. Fuel prices in India are determined by global crude oil rates and the position of the rupee against the dollar, and India has been hit hard on both counts. A drop in global oil prices is welcome news for Indian consumers. Now the decision to cut prices is in the hands of Indian companies. Bureau Report, WION.
Life, they say, can be tragic. Tragedies can be tolerated, but mysterious tragedies can be suffocating. And that's exactly what is happening to the relatives of the passengers of MH370, the flight that vanished on its way from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing more than 4 years back. This happened on the 8th of March 2014. Massive hunts were launched. The last one ended today. US-based Ocean Infinity has used deep-sea vessels to survey a vast area in the southern Indian Ocean. No results. The Malaysian government says it has no plans to begin a new search effort. In any case, official search efforts came to an end last year with no conclusion. No one knows what happened to the fateful flight. So what happens next? The Malaysian Transport Minister says a full report will be published soon. He is not given a date though. Australia says the search tested the limits of technology and experts and we are still at sea. Australia, Malaysia and China say the search would resume only if there is credible evidence identifying a specific location of this missing aircraft. Unfortunately, the only confirmed traces of this plane have been 3 wing fragments found washed up on Indian Ocean coasts. Let's take a look at what happened to MH370. On the 8th of March 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 lost contact less than an hour into the flight. 7 days later, on the 15th of March, in fact, a year later, 15th March 2015, investigators focused on the Indian Ocean. In July the same year, debris was found on Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean. January 2017, Australia, Malaysia and China suspend the official search. January 2018, that is this year, Ocean Infinity launches a search operation. And in May this year, today, Ocean Infinity's operation has ended. Malaysia says there is no plan to resume the search. And there are dozens of questions that still remain unanswered. Why was there no distress signal? Why was no alarm raised? Why did no passenger try to make a phone call? Nobody knows the answers. Was MH370 hijacked? Again, we don't know. And why have satellites failed to find this plane? Almost every inch of Earth is covered by satellites, and yet the world has failed to locate a plane as big as this one. There are many conspiracy theories. We've tried to piece together 10 of them on the disappearance of this plane. The first theory suggests that the missing Malaysian Airlines was accidentally shot down as part of a training drill that resulted in a blunder, following which the entire episode was covered up to save face. The second theory says that MH370 was hijacked and flown to Afghanistan. But what happened to the people? We don't know. The third theory suggests that the plane may have hidden from detection from another plane, most likely in the shadow of a Singapore Airlines flight. A rather bizarre theory suggested that the entire episode was nothing but an insurance scam. This theory was floated by none other than the Malaysian police chief, who insinuated that maybe somebody on the flight who had bought a huge sum of insurance wanted his family to gain from it. Incredible. The fifth theory, and one of the most widely held theories, is that there was a fire on board that killed everyone. But what happened to the plane? That's a question that still remains. One explanation for the sudden disappearance, according to some, could be pilot suicide. That is the sixth conspiracy theory, but authorities have no evidence whatsoever to back this. Another theory that aims to connect the dots suggests that the aircraft may have developed cracks, because 6 months before this plane went down, the US aviation watchdog warned airlines of a problem with cracks in Boeing 777s that could lead to mid-air breakup. Some believe that there could be an Asian Bermuda Triangle where the plane may have disappeared following an explosion or a mechanical failure. Boats and planes have been known to disappear in the patch of sea in the North Atlantic Ocean known as the Bermuda Triangle. The Devil's Sea in the Pacific is known as Asia's Bermuda Triangle. Even though no terror group has claimed responsibility for the missing flight, many assume it to be a terrorist's job. The 2 passengers who boarded the plane with stolen passports have triggered this possibility. The 10th theory suggests that some cyber hackers took over this plane and they crashed it. Reports say in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, new technology was designed allowing planes to be controlled remotely in the event of a hijacking, but it can be controlled by the wrong parties as well. MH370 is an unfortunate reminder of other aviation mysteries that have baffled mankind with no answers found to this day. If you observe the pattern, then most of these disappearances have happened over the sea or an ocean. Let's take you back to 1937. The story is about America's aviation pioneer Amelia Earhart. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. She vanished over the Central Pacific near Howland Island during an attempt to become the first female to circumnavigate the globe by flight. Though some clues have emerged over the years, but Earhart's plane is yet to be found. Then there's the disappearance of Flight 19 that had 5 Avenger torpedo bombers. It disappeared without a trace over the Bermuda Triangle on 5th December 1945. A boat that was deployed to search for the lost bombers also disappeared. 14 crew members on board the Avenger bombers were lost, including 13 members of the rescue team. The wreckage of the bombers was never found. The next mystery is a rather strange one. In 1951, a US Air Force C-124 Globemaster, which was on its way to England, crash-landed into the Atlantic Ocean. A few hundred miles from Ireland, the 53 passengers and crew on board this flight were saved just in time, courtesy life preservers and emergency rafts. Everyone was rescued. Another plane was on its way to help the Globemaster in navigation. When it arrived at the location, the crew of the rescue plane observed that the passengers were at the designated spot. The rescue plane then returned to its base to refuel the engine, but when the rescue crew came back to the same spot, the plane and the stricken passengers had all disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to these and what happened in the hours when help was on its way. The next mystery is surrounding the Flying Tiger Flight 739. It's a propliner plane chartered by the US military to fly 96 American soldiers from California to Vietnam. We are talking about the year 1962. This flight landed in Guam for a scheduled refueling. It departed for its next flight in the Philippines. About 80 minutes into the flight, the pilot sent a routine message to the ATC. Everything seemed to be okay. But that was the last contact with the plane. At that time, the search for the plane was one of the largest ever undertaken in the Pacific Ocean. But the aircraft was never seen or heard from again. In 2003, a decommissioned Boeing 727 plane mysteriously began moving on a runway at the Angola airport. It took off without clearance. It disappeared into the sky. It is believed that at least one man was on the plane at the time of its departure, and the plane was stolen. Its disappearance prompted a worldwide search by America's FBI and the CIA. No trace of this aircraft has been found since. And talking about one of the latest mysteries, which is from India, on July 22nd, 2016, Indian Air Force's military aircraft AN-32 disappeared while flying over the Bay of Bengal. There were 29 people on board at the time, 16 ships, 1 submarine, 6 aircraft were deployed for the largest search operation in Indian history. This mission was called off in September, and all on board presumed dead. We do not know what became of these planes. There is no respite from the freak weather that has wreaked havoc in regions across the globe. Storm Alberto has made a landfall in Florida. Floods have killed scores in India, and a tornado is creating chaos in China.
Subtropical storm Alberto, which made a landfall in Florida, has already claimed 2 lives in North Carolina in less than 24 hours. Though the storm had weakened before making a landfall in Florida, forecasters warned it was capable of triggering life-threatening flash floods as it spreads over Alabama and large areas of Georgia, Tennessee and the Carolinas. Alberto, the first named storm of the hurricane season, rolled up big waves and tides along beaches of the northern Gulf Coast, forcing some Memorial Day tributes to be cancelled across Florida. Talking about storms, over 45 people have already died in storms in northern and eastern India. High-speed winds and light rain brought down trees and electricity poles. The Indian Meteorological Department has predicted thunderstorms and rain accompanied by gusty winds in Uttar Pradesh. Kerala and Karnataka are likely to witness heavy rains, while gusty winds reaching 60 kilometers per hour are also likely to affect the coastal states along Maharashtra and Goa. The weather often turns extreme in North India at this time of the year, as the blistering summer heat prepares to give way to annual monsoon rains. Meanwhile, strong winds leading up to severe sandstorms have hit various areas across northwest China. Winds whipped up sand, reducing visibility to only about 200 meters, uprooting numerous trees and knocking over power lines. Not only strong winds, a tornado has hit South China, which has uprooted trees and wreaked havoc across fish ponds in Dongshan in the Guangdong province. The Meteorological Department has issued a blue alert for strong winds at the Alashangkar port. Bureau Report, WION.